And speaking of resources, you know, the San Diego Science Alliance is a nimble nonprofit organization that doesn't have a brick and mortar, but we do have an address, and that's where Cindy Marten went to this morning. Cindy, would you please join us and accept my apology for sending you to our post office? This is the superintendent of the second largest school district in the state of California, and she doesn't have staff yet. Cindy, thanks for being here to say your support for STEM education.
Good morning, everybody. There's no excuses for being late. So the Central Way, Central Elementary is a school where I've just left as a principal, and we called our motto the Central Way, and it was work hard, be kind, dream big, no excuses. And so I won't make an excuse for being late, but I will say there was a reason when I was standing in front of its post office box going, I don't see 150 people here. So I am the superintendent designate of San Diego Unified, and the designate part, what that really means is you don't have any support staff yet. So I'm doing the whole thing on my own at this point. Actually, I really have a great support team. It's just a transition period right now, and this is really the second week that I'm not at a school where I've just spent the last 10 years of my life. And Central Elementary is a school in the middle of City Heights with about 1,000 children, pre-kindergarten through 5th grade. And I showed up there 10 years ago because I believe in the hope and promise of public education in America. And I had worked in lots of different places. I had been a student in City Heights at Horace Mann. I'd been a student in a private school at La Jolla Country Day. I went to college in Wisconsin and then came back to San Diego and taught in a private school. Then I taught in Poway Unified. So I experienced as an educator all the things that can happen when you write a check for a private school education, or when you can afford a home with a nice zip code and get a great education in Poway Unified. I experienced lots of things as an educator, and I wanted to get involved and engaged and participate and contribute to a place where children lived in Section 8 housing. 100% of the children at Central Elementary live in poverty. 85% of them are English learners. And I wanted to be a part of that and go to the front lines and engage in that. So when I came to Central 10 years ago as a teacher, didn't have an admin credential, didn't want one, wasn't interested in sort of moving up the career ranks. I just wanted to engage. And so from the day I got there, we just started engaging. And anybody here from Central Elementary? Roots at Central? I know Debbie knows Central. You know what? It's really difficult to do transformative work when you have children coming from poverty and children who are struggling, and then you're under the pressure of No Child Left Behind. And if you don't get those test scores, things you get punished, and there's all sorts of things that happen. And I understand a broad, challenging, well-rounded, balanced curriculum, and because I experienced it as a student, I experienced it as a teacher, and there's no reason why all children can't have that, not some, but all. And so from the very beginning, the work we did at Central was incorporating science and the arts into the work that we did, because we understand that you learned through engagement and through active engagement. And so it was just a belief system that we held. I became the vice principal and the principal during my time there. But we always had a science program, and a lot of my colleagues were concerned about the science, and the pressure was for reading, writing, and math, and the science test wasn't something that people were paying as much attention to. So if you don't pay attention to the test, then you don't pay attention to the teaching, is kind of what was happening. And that never made sense to me. So we always had a science teacher, science lab, and our science scores were actually the first scores that went up at Central when we began to engage in our work of putting in a balanced, broad, challenging curriculum, English learner supports, professional development assessment that drives instruction, all the research-based practices that we know work. We put those in place, science being at the heart of it, and the first thing that went up were our science scores. We had, I think, and I don't want to get fact-checked on it, but it was something like 12 to 15% of the students of 5th graders proficient on the science test, and now the Central students are over 60% proficient, and that is competitive with the rest of the district. So there you have the most challenging students. Science came along first, then math, and the final scores that are coming along are the literacy scores. Those are the scores that were the most difficult to affect change in, because you have 85% English learners. So I got involved with the Blue Ribbon Task Force. We began to look at how do we make this systemic? What types of policy decisions and support decisions do we need to make? When I look at the science department, I see Don back there. The way the district science department supported us through our kits to make it active learning, we had a lot of district support, but then it was site-level leadership and teacher-level leadership believing in how science can push on, science teaching starting from kindergarten can push on achievement across the curriculum. So it was something that we're really proud of. Last year, our girls outperformed our boys in science, so for the first time ever since we've been tracking it, so I was really happy to see that. We also partnered with San Diego State. Is Donna Ross in here? Donna as the science, San Diego State, I don't know if I'm going to say the words right, but San Diego State Science Girls Club, right? Is that the name of it?
And we also partnered with the fleet. So
With the fleet, exactly. And there was an after-school science club where our fifth grade girls would go. And I credit her and her program to those girls' science scores going up. It was everything that we're doing, but she took our most interested and engaged girls and just ignited something that was already in there and had them believing in themselves as scientists. So it comes from a leadership stance, though, and creating had to create supports, had to create professional development, had to say that it mattered, and instead of ignoring it because there was too much pressure to pay attention to the other things, we paid attention to it, and then we used it as a lever to push achievement at our school. And I'm talking about scores right now, and just know that when I talk about scores, I have to contextualize that our goal is not to produce a test score. It's to produce an actively literate, contributing, participating member of society who makes a positive difference in the world. And the work that you're doing here is part of creating conditions where our graduates make a positive difference in the world. And the test scores are a byproduct for us. Those test scores go up when you focus on the right things. And that's what we've seen happen at Central. And I believe that science was absolutely at the heart of some of the transformational work that happened there because kids' minds and hearts were engaged in something they cared passionately about. So you have a huge supporter in your work in me because I've watched how I was able to use that as a lever to affect massive change in one of the most difficult situations known to public education. So I'm here to say I support this work in any way that I can and participating in using my voice if I need my voice or in resources, and you will be the guides and the shepherds and help making this happen across our city, our state, and our nation. So thank you.